Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Thursday, February 20th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 495 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate those of you tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms where the show can be found. The support has been amazing. I appreciate every single one of you tuning into all of these episodes as we continue on here in the beginning parts of a big 2025 offseason for this new regime and the New York Jets. And today I wanted to get into two topics relating the New York Jets. The first one being a report from Jeremy Fowler, which will play the clip here soon, on the Jets being a sleeper option for Justin Fields. Wanted to break that down, give some of my thoughts on the possibility of the Jets signing Justin Fields, the likelihood of that happening. We'll break that down. And I also wanted to get into the NFL salary cap going up again this year and how that impacts the Jets, and break down some of the Jets salary cap situation and where they can go from here with some potential cuts here as the offseason starts to really roll on over the next couple weeks into the new league year and free agency. As always, though, before we begin, I want to get into our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. Four nations final tonight, USA, Canada, for all the marbles. If you want to get in on any of the four nations face-off final tonight, check out BetUS. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action, make sure to check them out and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first three deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek, if you're looking to get tickets to any of the best sporting events or best in entertainment, plays, concerts, shows, you name it, SeatGeek has it. Use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek and get yourself out to some awesome events. And, of course, our friends over at Huga House, if you're looking for any of their awesome new selection of hats and sweatshirts, which are going very fast, or any of their original hats, check them out. And at checkout, use promo code BUBS for 15% off your purchase, and you'll get 30% off your second hat when you use that code at checkout. So that definitely get them or check them out and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So here we go, episode 495. Thank you to all those tuning in. Another day, another podcast, some more Jets news to discuss. And I wanted to start here with Justin Fields as the New York Jets, as we get closer here, the Jets and the NFL get closer here to free agency, the new league year. As we know, the Jets will find themselves looking for their quarterback option in 2025. And one of the names that has been thrown out there, one of the names that will be available is Justin Fields. And I wanted to bring this clip up here and play it. This was Jeremy Fowler on Justin Fields and listing the Jets as a possible sleeper option and why he sees the two as a potential fit. Here was Fowler on the Field situation.
Quarterback Justin Fields will be fielding calls as a free agent. And look at that, senior NFL reporter Jeremy Fowler is now joining us to talk a little bit about this. So, Jeremy, last year, Justin Fields started 6 games for the Steelers. Russell Wilson started the other 11. What is the latest with Justin Fields?
Yeah, well, Justin Fields, Christine, is going to be a pretty hot name. Outside of Sam Darnold as the top free agent quarterback, Fields can make a strong argument for number 2. I'm told Fields is open to a return to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a good experience there. The belief is that Pittsburgh is also open to that too, but he wants a clean runway to start a full season. He didn't get that last year. He would like to be the guy wherever he goes. New York Jets are a sleeper option here. They could have some interest. They like the idea of a dual threat quarterback. He's younger. I'm told Fields has looked at that roster, sees some intrigue there too. They have some good young pieces like Garrett Wilson, have a good defense. So we'll see what happens.
So there's Fowler on Fields, and I don't think this should come as much of a surprise to Jets fans that the Jets, from what he's hearing or gathering, or really more so predicting, because look, a lot of this time of year is a whole lot of rumors and some of it's just assumptions. But there should be interest from the Jets side, and it does make sense as to why Fields would have some intrigue from his perspective as well to potentially join the Jets, get an opportunity to come in, get a real opportunity to start, which is what he wants. I think Fields and Tyrod, that battle would most likely be what happens and what would occur. And there's certainly a chance where Fields could definitely win out that battle and find himself in a position where he can get a full season of starting games as long as he stays healthy, unlike last year in Pittsburgh, where, of course, his time was cut short when Russell Wilson came back. I've mentioned this a lot. I like Fields a lot as an option for the Jets. He would be one of my top free agents. Fowler mentioned it. Really, outside of Sam Darnold, you probably have to put Fields number 2. Now, Sam Darnold is not realistic for the Jets. That's not going to happen. So really, from a Jet perspective, you can make the strong argument, and I would certainly be on board with this argument, that Fields, if the Jets would to look at the free agent market to bring in another veteran plus maybe draft somebody, Fields is the kind of the top guy with a lot of upside, right? 2021 draft pick, hasn't quite panned out, has shown some good things with his legs, still needs to improve as a passer. But for the Jets to take a 1-year rental on the guy, come in here, potentially be your best option over some of the other options that are available out there, and maybe even better than the options you have in-house, although I do like Tyrod more than many others do. But the chance Fields has to come here and maybe he has a spark here and you find something in him is certainly intriguing. I've mentioned this a lot. I want a guy that has mobility. I want a guy that can move around a little bit. I want a guy that is going to be able to take some chances, move around a little bit, be a little entertaining, provide a little bit of energy, provide a little bit of boost into this offense. That's what this offense needs, and that's what Tanner Engstrand and this offense is going to have. It's going to be a very run-heavy offense with a backfield that's going to be led by Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. It's going to feature, with a mobile quarterback, a lot of RPOs. It's going to feature a lot of plays where Fields is going to be able to take off, or whoever's under center. Tyrod also has some mobility where he can take off. Whoever that might be, we are going to find yourselves in situations where Breece can run it, then you can have Fields running it, and you can kind of mix that up and confuse some of the defenses. We've seen what Baltimore, of course, has been able to do with a very good running back and a mobile quarterback. Now, that's not Fields and Breece Hall, is not Lamar and Derrick Henry, but you get the point. That's kind of what the Jets offense could look like from a schematic game planning perspective. You use Fields' legs a lot, and you use Breece and Braylon Allen a lot, similar to the way they used, of course, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. So Fields is intriguing, and I wouldn't even necessarily consider the Jets as like a sleeper option. I think the Jets should clearly have interest. I don't think that should be surprised that they obviously have some level of interest, and I don't think it should be much of a surprise that Fields has some level of interest in the Jets, right? He was college teammates with Garrett Wilson. You look at this roster, yeah, there's a lot of holes, but there is some talent. There is some pieces to build upon. You've got a lot of work to do in the receiving core, but you hope that you make those necessary adjustments in free agency and you put the right quarterback in this scheme for 2025 and then look to draft somebody in 2026, and you can still find a way to have some success in 2025. And I feel like Fields could be a guy that does that for you. You look at his 6 games as the starter last year for Pittsburgh, generated a 4-2 record. 66.3% of his passes, he was completing, 1,106 yards, 6.9 yards per completion, 5 touchdowns a pick, and a 93.9 passer rating. Look, there's a lot that needs to be fixed with Justin Fields, no doubt, right? His passing game needs some work. He's shown some flashes and needs some work. He holds on to the ball a lot. He will take a lot of sacks. That all needs to be worked on, but his mobility is clear as a clear strength. 289 yards last year in his last year with the Steelers and 5 touchdowns on 62 attempts. He plays the full season. You're probably looking towards a guy that generates probably around 600 to 700 yards on the ground. I mean, 2022, he rushed for 1,100 yards. He's a very mobile quarterback. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL when he's using his legs as a runner. And that's kind of what I want in this next Jets quarterback. I want a guy in 2025 that's going to be able to move. And I understand the possibility of bringing in Kirk Cousins because he's cheap. The reason why I'm more anti-Kirk Cousins than maybe some other people is the guy can't move. We just saw Aaron Rodgers last year go through the season banged up and for most parts have struggled moving in and out of the pocket. I think if the Jets really want to find that identity of a run-first offense, of a ground-and-pound offense, which is what Tanner Engstrand is probably going to bring, and an offense that can take some risks and take some chances, you want a quarterback like a Justin Fields, a guy like a Tyrod Taylor who can move around, make some plays happen, extend plays. Even a Jameis Winston, right? He's going to throw the ball deep. He's going to take chances. Yeah, he's going to make a lot of stupid mistakes, but they're going to take some risks. This is a Jets offense that for the last couple years has been in this 10 to 12-yard box. They need to break through that. There needs to be more explosiveness. Mobility can provide that, especially if that's what you center your offense around before eventually taking a quarterback in 2026 who can add more of that dominant passing presence, which really isn't what you're going to get in Fields. You're going to get flashes, but it's not going to be consistent. And who knows? Maybe you take a flyer on Fields and it works out. I doubt that happens, but it's certainly something that the Jets should look down, and seems like they are. And they should be a clear option for him. Now, the only thing with Fields is number one, he can go right back to Pittsburgh and be right back in that same system and get an opportunity to start. So I would still consider Pittsburgh the favorite if they don't go out and get somebody like an Aaron Rodgers, right? But another thing, too, that I think complicates the whole Fields thing is what the Jets are willing to pay for Justin Fields. This is a guy that's probably going to command around 10 to 15 million. Are the Jets going to be willing to pay 12 million, 13 million maybe in the middle there for Justin Fields when they could pay 1 million for Kirk Cousins or just 6.8 million now with Tyrod Taylor? Or even look at another cheaper guy, Jameis Winston or somebody like that, right? As opposed to giving Fields maybe upwards to 15 million for 1 year when the Jets maybe just go the cheaper option. That's, I think, the biggest thing that could really sort of be the difference between Fields coming here and not coming here, or be the difference in the Jets going in and trying to get Fields and then kind of backing off. As they get into that bidding war, I don't see the Jets going to the lengths of 15 million for Fields. I don't see it. Maybe 10. I don't see 15. Do they meet in the middle? We'll see. I still think Fields will probably end up in Pittsburgh at the end of this. I don't think he ends up as a Jet. But it's an intriguing name to watch and a name that I think a lot of Jet fans would be on board with, as they should. As they should. He's a quarterback that's shown you some positives. He's a guy that can win some games. We saw that last year. You put a good defense, give him a solid running back, give him a good offensive scheme. This team can compete next year and be competitive with Justin Fields. You don't win a Super Bowl with Justin Fields? No. Can you be competitive? Yes. So we'll see. But listed as a sleeper option. And I think that makes a lot of sense as why the Jets would be listed there as such. Because there should be interest on both sides. So that's the Justin Fields aspect. I want to move on here now and discuss some other stuff that's happening around the NFL that directly affects the Jets and, of course, all 32 NFL teams. This was a report yesterday from Dan Graziano that stated the NFL informed teams that the 2025 per team salary cap will fall in the range of 277.5 million to 281.5 million, way up from last year's 255.4 million. Cap will have increased by more than 53 million over the last 2 years. So you read that. What does that tell you? Salary cap increasing yet again. So it'll be around 277 to 281 million this season. Expected to probably rise again next year and the year after. It's always rising as the league continues to bring in more revenue. Salary cap will only go up and up and up. And it does have a benefit in a lot of teams. And I think the Jets are kind of in that boat. With the salary cap going up, you look at the Jets' salary cap situation right now, there is still a path for this team to pick up more cap space, open up more cap space, and get themselves in a situation by the time free agency comes around where they can be a little bit of bigger spenders than what maybe you look at their salary cap situation now and you say to yourself, and I'm not saying you got to go out there and spend as drunken sailors. That's not what the Jets are going to do this year in 2025. But there's a lot of needs on this team. And there's a lot of needs that are going to need to be filled through free agency. And there's a lot of free agent options out there, not even the top guys, but there's other guys out there that the New York Jets could bring in that are free agents that can fit this team, fit the mold of what this team needs. And you find some solutions because there's a lot of holes. And some of these holes, a lot of these holes will need to be filled during free agency. The others filled during the draft. And you look at the Jets salary cap situation right now, and what I kind of wanted to do today in this episode, break it down a little bit. Jets currently right now have 23.6 million in cap space, around 23.6 to about 23.8 in cap space. That ranks 20th in the NFL per over the cap. So not a ton there. But I do think the Jets, salary cap increasing, good time to talk about this, good time to look at where the Jets stand. Over the cap is already projected to new salary cap, so it's 279.5, and the projected new salary cap would have the Jets in 20th place, or 20th in the NFL, rather, which isn't a ton. It's not a lot. However, you look at the Jets roster right now, you look at the moves that still have to be made, they can open up a lot of cap space here by the time free agency rolls around, which, as I mentioned, could open up the door for this team to spend a little bit more, a little bit larger than maybe some expect, right? 23.6 million right now, 20th in the NFL. But when you break down some likely cuts that will need to happen before things really get started this off season, it already raises up, right? You think about Aaron Rodgers. When they eventually move on from him officially, when the new league year begins, he'll create, moving on from him with that June 1st designation, will create 9.5 million. So that's number one. Number two, another likely cut will be Davante Adams. Now, I guess there is a world the Jets could trade Davante. I most likely see it as they just flat out cut him and move on and let him go find his team elsewhere. That probably being a team out west that can compete for a Super Bowl. That seems like his ideal destination. They can free up a lot. 29.9 million freed up with the Davante Adams cut, which is coming rather. And then finally will be Allen Lazard. That would free up 6.3 million. Those are the three likeliest moves that will be made to free up some cap space. So just with those three moves, the three likeliest moves, the Jets go from 20th in the NFL at 23.6 million to 6th in the NFL at 69.3 million. Now, other cuts that you have to factor in. I love CJ Mosley, been a great Jet, probably going to move on. Suffered injuries last year, tail end of his career. Maybe he retires. He might go to another team where he has a chance to compete for a Super Bowl in 2025 for one more run and get a shot at it, where that does obviously is not the case here. Does not have a Super Bowl. Maybe he goes to another team for a year, tries to get one more ring before he hangs it up, similar to maybe what Morgan Moses wants to do and why the Jets are moving on from him. Maybe that's more of, again, we talked about that on Tuesday. Morgan Moses' side is saying, look, he might only have a year or two left. Try and get yourself a ring. Mosley's been awesome. Probably going to move on. Going to try and get younger at that position. You've got Quincy Williams, make an effort to bring Jamien Sherwood back, potentially go out and figure out that position as well in free agency trades. So Mosley, if they do move on, that would be $4 million freed up. Greg Zuerlein, very likely cut candidate. Regressed massively last season. Big reason why this team ended 5-12. $2.4 million would be freed up. And Michael Clemens, who, if we're being honest, probably should have never been drafted, but shouldn't have been on the team last year. Should not be on the team this year again, and don't expect him to be. That would open up $3.25 million. So where the Jets stand right now, with the new salary cap in place, 279.5 around there, they're at 23.6, 20th in the NFL. Just moving on from Rodgers, Devontae, and Lazard, they get up to 6th in the NFL at 69.3. Then you move on from Mosley, Zuerlein, Michael Clemens, all likely moves. They can now get up to $78.95 million, which would be 4th in the NFL. So the Jets, even with this salary cap increasing, still in a good spot and can be in a really good spot in a couple weeks once these moves can get done. They can get themselves all the way up into the top 5 in the NFL in salary cap space. And again, that does not mean they've got to spend like drunken sailors and be desperate and overpay. No, but it gives them a lot more flexibility, and there's a lot of needs. There's a lot of money that's going to need to go around to a lot of different spots. You need 2 new safeties. You're going to need some help at linebacker. You're going to need some help on the defensive line. You're going to need some help at wide receiver, potentially some help at tight end if you don't bring Tyler Conklin back. Even if you do bring Conklin back, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in a veteran, because outside of Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert and Zach Kuntz don't provide anything of value. So if you go into the year with just Conklin and Ruckert, Conklin would to go down or struggles like he did last year, you're getting no value from that position. So tight end, maybe you look in the draft at Tyler Warren. Either way, it's a position of need. Right tackle, offensive line depth in general, there's a lot of holes. Quarterback, another big one. How much are you willing to spend on quarterback? Find a free agent, draft the guy in the middle rounds. That seems very likely. Who will that be? How much will that be? Only time will tell. But the Jets set themselves up here with these moves where they can be in a very, very good cap situation going into 2025 here, or going into free agency here in the new league year of 2025 in a couple weeks, despite what the narrative is. I feel like there's this kind of narrative that has been floated around the Jets that they're in salary cap like purgatory and they're in the salary cap basement because of the Aaron Rodgers situation. They're really not. Yeah, the dead cap hurts, but when you look at their actual salary cap space with the moves that still should be made and will be made, they're actually in a lot better of a spot. Top 5 potentially in the NFL in salary cap space with these possible 6 moves. A lot better than what people make it out to be. People act like the outside narrative is Jets have no money. They're not going to be able to spend on anybody. This team's going to stink. They're not going to be able to fill any holes. That's not necessarily true if you break it down and look at it from that standpoint. So it'll be interesting. There's a lot of needs. Not all of it can be filled through the draft. Not all of it can be filled through free agency. You're going to need to find that balance, and you're going to need to figure out what positions of need do you want to fill during free agency? What positions of need would you prefer to fill during the draft? I think you could look at positions and fill them both. Wide receiver, I think ideally you try and get a veteran and then take somebody in the draft. Maybe 2 veterans, take somebody in the draft. Maybe you take a Tet McMillan, a Luther Burden, and a Mika Igbuka, somebody like that in the first round, and a veteran. So there's a lot of mixing and mashing that you can do. Safety, you're going to need to sign somebody in free agency, and they got to value safety a lot more than the previous regime did, in my opinion. Last year, you started to really see the low-cost additions, the lack of I guess, investing into the safety position and really hurt the Jets last year. So that needs to be fixed. Do you pay on a guy like a Justin Reed? Corner 2 as well. Wrote an article on it. Carlton Davis, an option to look for. Talked about it on the podcast. That's a need. So would be very smart and would be in a better spot. Get some of the salary cap flexibility and get yourself in a situation where you can spend more here in free agency for the variety of needs that this team has. Kicker as well. So that'll do it. Episode 495 in the books. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Possibility of Justin Fields becoming the Jets quarterback. Think it happens? Doesn't think it happened? Do you want it to happen? Let me know. And what are your thoughts on the NFL salary cap going up, how it impacts the Jets, and your thoughts on the Jets cap situation on its own. So another episode down. Talk to you guys soon. Until next time, Jets, Jets, Jets.